This one's cube root, so we need to think, how do I get 2 under a cube root sign? Or what number do I have to take the cube root of to end up with 2? Anybody think of that one? Probably have a good idea. I need to take the cube root of something to end up with 2, and then I have the cube root of 4. So right now I'm just dealing with this 2 here. What do I take the cube root of to end up with 2? What number multiplied by itself 3 times gives me 2? In this case, I'm going to go 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. And Alex was on it. And then I can say, I have 2 cubed roots. I can combine these under one radical sign, or one cube root sign. So I'm going to write one big cube root sign, 8 times 4. And then just do the multiplication. 8 times 4 gives me 32. So I can take the cube root of 32. All right, 2 more. This next one's going to test if we're kind of really on the ball, because it's the 5th root, and I'm not really that familiar with 5th roots. It's not something that happens a lot. Excellent question, Avery. Is there any way to combine a square root and a cube root? No. They're different things. It'd be like if you had x's and y's. If it said simplify and you had like 7x plus 2y plus 3x plus 2y, you can't combine your x's and y's together. They're different things. So same thing with the cube roots and square roots. They're different things. We're not going to combine them together. I say that, but we will actually eventually combine them together, but not right now. So no combining them together. Taylor's confused about getting the 49 and the 8. Okay. So let's do this question, Taylor, or everyone, if you want to think of it this way. Maybe I'll go to a simpler one. So the 7 root 3. So if I said, I give you the square root of 147, and I said, write it as a mixed radical. You don't even need to write this down if you don't want to. So you think, okay, write it as a mixed radical. I'm going to figure out the largest. I'm going to figure out the largest perfect square, because I don't have a cubed or a fourth or a fifth or anything up front. I'm going to figure out the largest perfect square that goes into 147. You think to yourself, okay, 36 doesn't go in, and you check on your calculator and you keep doing divisions until you find one that fits in a whole number of times. And you say 49 goes in there. So I'm going to write this as 49 times 3. And then you're like, okay, square root of 49 is 7, and the square root of 3, I can't do that. So I get 7 root 3. So what I've just done is I've taken the exact same question here, and I've just worked backwards. Same thing. Just going the other way. I start at the 147, and now I'm going to the 7 root 3. So the 49 came from the fact that it's a perfect square. And if I can use these perfect squares, I can figure out these sorts of things. So let's maybe look at the last couple examples here, and might sort of help us out. As I said here, the 5th roots of things, I don't know. I don't have them memorized. So I'm actually going to have to do some work on my little calculator here. I need to get this 2 under a 5th root, because these both need to be 5th roots. So I'm thinking, what number multiplied by itself, or basically what's 2 times itself 5 times? We're going to maybe try out a new feature we've developed here. I don't know if this is going to work as well as we'd hope. All right. So here's my calculator, just a regular plain Jane scientific calculator. And oh, I'm beside it and my hand's in it at the same time. It's just like I'm in two places at once. Crazy. So what I'm going to do is I need to figure out the fifth root of 2, essentially. So I'm going to go 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. That's 4 times 2. So 2 multiplied by itself 5 times. What does that give us? Now, Alex, you've already put it into chat. I'm going to hit equals, and I end up with 32. So I know that the fifth root of 32 is 2. So I'm going to see if I can go back. I'm not going to be able to do this easily. Back to my worksheet here. All right, so I know that the fifth root of 32 gives me 2. So Taylor and Alex both on it, which is really good. And then I can write this as an entire one. So I'm going to put the 5 out front. I have my 32 times my 3. 32 times 3 is going to be 96. And I get the fifth root of 96. All right, I want you guys to try D. The examples that are kind of included with these, the cube roots and the fifth roots and stuff are kind of maybe more extreme examples. You kind of will get a lot simpler ones to sort of start when you start doing the practice. So don't be stressed out about it. Be like, oh my God, I don't know these numbers and this is just so much work. And anyways, it'll come with practice, getting used to these things. And Taylor asks, so you multiply by the little 5. I guess if you want to think about it that way, that would work actually. You can multiply the thing in front by whatever's in front of the radical sign. The only thing you're going to run into is, I don't know if it's a problem, but with something like the square root of 5, we don't actually write a little 2 in front, but there is a 2 in front. And it's not multiplying by the 2, it's multiplying the number by itself as many times as the little number in front. So in this case, it's a 2, so it's not 2 times 4 gives me 8, because we didn't go 2 times 5 gives me 10, we went 2 multiplied by itself 5 times. So just like this one, we're going to do the 7 multiplied by itself 2 times. Last one, square root 80. I believe it is. Let's check. So I need to figure out how to get that 4 under a radical sign. And I know 4 times 4 is going to give me 16. So I'm going to write it as square root of 16 multiplied by square root of 5. Because I know the square root of 16 would give me 4, and I just end up with 4 root 5. I'm going to take it a step further. I'm going to say I can put both of these things under one radical sign, and then I'm just going to do the multiplication. And I end up with 80. And again, if you want to think about working backwards, if I had the root of 80, I'd say, what's the biggest perfect square that can fit under there? Again, you don't have to write this down. Say, oh, I know 16 goes in there. How many times? 5 times. 16 times 5 gives me 80. Square root of 16 times the square root of 5. Square root of 16 gives me 4 root 5. So this is working forwards, this is working backwards. Same thing. And that's kind of it. And I promise you that it's just going to be a little bit of practice. And if it doesn't make sense right now, once you get in and do a few questions, hopefully it'll start to make a little more sense. It's important you start just kind of slowly and work your way into it. So maybe look at the learning guide here. We've done all this stuff, or should be, fairly well through most of this. Simplifying radicals is where we're at. So now we should be doing the simplifying radical section. So this is page 5. Write out the following as products of 2 radicals in as many ways as possible. So the first one here, the root 18. What can I write these as? I could write it as square root of 9 and 2. What other way can I get 18? I could get the square root of 6 and 3. And then I think, oh, I need to circle the one that's a perfect square. So in this case, square root of 9 is a perfect square. So that's kind of how these questions are going to work. It's just helping you recognize the perfect squares that go into these. 24. I could have 12 and 2. I could have 8 and 3. And I could have 4 and 6. Where is my perfect square? I could have picked any one of these. I could have broken my 24 into either of these, this one, or this one, but only one of them has a perfect square in it. And this 4 and the 6 is the perfect square because the 4. So that's the one I'm going to use. Number 4, simplify each of the following. This is kind of like what we just did, breaking these down. And we start really simple. So largest perfect square that goes into 8. Think to myself, 8. I could write that as a 4 and a 2, which is going to give me 2 root 2. So if you went onto your calculator right now and you plugged in the square root of 8, you get a decimal approximation, and then you plugged in 2 times the square root of 2, you should just get the same thing. They're both the same thing, they're just written in different ways. Kind of like the fraction. 1 over 2 is the same as 4 over 8. I can write that fraction more than one way, but I always end up with the same answer. Number 5 is writing it as an entire radical. So you're going to try to get the 2 under a radical sign and then get them together as one radical. And then these ones are the same thing with the cube roots. And then same deal as cube roots. Same sort of idea here with A's and B's. I'm just going to write a star next to 8. When you are going through the work, when you get to 8, if you can simplify the numbers out front, awesome. Don't worry about the A's and B's for now. We haven't really spent time dealing with that, so maybe I'll go through that next day. And then a couple of questions. Cube has a volume, what's the length of each side? Should be able to do those, I think. Like terms, we'll deal with this next day. So not a ton of work, just a few questions, just some practice. Simplifying radicals, only the one section for today. Mrs. Ward isn't going to be on till 10:25, so you guys actually have 15 minutes. I'm just going to end it there. You guys could probably get most of this stuff done in the next 15, or you could grab a drink and a snack and wait for Mrs. Ward to come on. Does anybody have any questions before I leave for today? So I can put those in. Nobody's typing. Taylor might have a question. Yeah, the quizzes in the course you should be doing. I think the first one you can actually do comes after this section. So yeah, lesson 3 we've done today, and then the quiz number 1. So you should be able to do the quiz 1 after today's stuff. So if you're comfortable with what you've done today, you can have a go at quiz number 1. I'm pretty sure I turned off the timer on it, and I think there's 2 attempts on it. So just keep that in mind. I recommend you do it twice. It's the worst that could happen. And then there'll be a quiz after our lesson on Monday. And then that's it for this unit. It's a short one. The next day's material is, again, pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of terribly difficult stuff here. So we'll finish it up on Monday. And we'll write the test maybe by the end of next week. I don't want to leave it too long. I think I put a date in here, Friday, October 23rd. So you should be done by Friday. And Friday is a Pro D day, I believe, next week. So you could, if you got your review or your learning guide, what you're kind of working through this time then there you go. awesome question. And should we do the quiz twice even if we do well on the first attempt? I'll tell you this much. The test that you do is based out of the same questions as the quizzes. So if you did each quiz twice, they're just randomly chosen questions. You might get the same question on a quiz and then the next quiz, or you might get the same question on a quiz and then the test. So when you're doing the quizzes, it's always going to take your highest grade. Doesn't matter if you get 1 and 5, it just takes the 5. So I would personally probably do them each twice if I was allowed 2 attempts, because it exposes me to the same questions I might end up seeing again on the next attempt, or I might see the same question on a test or a question really similar. So I'm not going to say you have to, but if it were up to me, I probably would do them all twice, just for good practice. Even if you just went through it, you got 5, and then you just browse through it again to see what the questions look like, and you don't even need to submit your second attempt if you don't want to. It doesn't matter to me. There's no wrong there. I've given you 2 attempts. If you want to use them, then use them. So I'm going to leave it like that. That hopefully is a good spot to end. We'll wrap up this unit on Monday. We'll finish that test by hopefully next Friday. If you're still working through the Unit 2 stuff, send me a message if you need some help. I would really love it if we could finish that soon, very soon, because I don't want to leave it for too long. So thanks very much for signing in today, guys, and Mrs. Ward will be with you at 10:25. Thanks. Bye.